Playing with Fire, Episode 3. The stakes were higher than ever, and Lucian knew that this was more than just a physical challenge. It was a psychological battle designed to break them from the inside out. "Stay close," Lucian ordered, his voice firm. "We need to keep moving and stay ahead of his traps." Tara nodded, her grip tightening on Jodie's hand. The fear in her sister's eyes was evident. They had come too far to give up now. As they ran through the tangled pathways, Lucian's mind worked furiously to outthink Shadow Wraith. He knew that the hacker was always a step ahead, but he also knew that Shadow Wraith thrived on chaos and unpredictability. Lucian needed to find a way to turn that against him. "Lucian, look!" Tara pointed to a hidden panel in the wall. "I think we can access the security system from here." Lucian moved quickly, prying open the panel to reveal a control terminal. His fingers flew over the keys, bypassing Shadow Wraith's encryptions and accessing the building's internal systems. As he worked, Tara kept watch, her eyes scanning the corridors for any signs of danger. "Got it," Lucian muttered, pulling up a map of the complex. "There's a central control room not far from here. If we can reach it, we might be able to regain control of the building." "Lead the way," Tara said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. They moved swiftly, following the map's directions through the twisting corridors. The complex was a meandering of hidden passages and traps, but Lucian's expertise and Tara's quick thinking helped them navigate the dangers. Jodie stayed close, her eyes wide, terrified. As they approached the central control room, the lights blinked again, and Shadow Wraith's voice echoed through the intercom. "You're getting close, Lucian, but do you really think you can outsmart me?" Lucian's jaw tightened. "We'll see about that." They reached the control room, the door sliding open to reveal a high-tech command center. Lucian moved to the main terminal, his fingers flying over the keys as he worked to regain control of the building's systems. Tara and Jodie watched. Their tension was noticeable. "He's locked us out of most of the systems," Lucian muttered, frustration evident in his voice. "But I can still access the security cameras." The screens flickered to life, showing various parts of the complex. Lucian scanned the feeds, looking for any sign of Shadow Wraith. His eyes narrowed as he spotted movement in one of the corridors. "He's heading for the main power grid," Lucian said. "If he takes that out, we'll lose all control over the building." "We need to stop him," Tara said, determination in her voice. "How do we get there?" Lucian pulled up the map, plotting a route to the power grid. "This way, but we need to move fast." They raced through the corridors, the walls still shifting and changing around them. Lucian's mind was focused, every step calculated. He knew that this was their last chance to stop Shadow Wraith and regain control. As they approached the power grid, the lights flickered and dimmed. Shadow Wraith's voice echoed through the intercom, a cold laugh that sent chills down their spines. "You're too late, Lucian. The game is over." They burst into the power grid room, the sight that greeted them causing their hearts to sink. Shadow Wraith stood by the main control panel, his hand hovering over a series of switches. "Step away from the panel," Lucian ordered, his voice cold and authoritative. Shadow Wraith turned, his eyes glinting with amusement. "You really think you can stop me, Blackwood?" Lucian's eyes locked onto Shadow Wraith's, a silent battle of wills playing out between them. He knew that this was the moment of truth, the showdown that would determine their fate. Before Shadow Wraith could react, Lucian lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The two men grappled, their struggle fierce and brutal. Tara and Jodie watched, their hearts pounding as the battle unfolded before them. With a final surge of strength, Lucian pinned Shadow Wraith to the ground, his knife at the hacker's throat. "It's over," he growled. "You've lost." But Shadow Wraith's eyes glinted with a dangerous light. "You think this ends with me?" As he spoke, a series of beeps echoed through the room, and Lucian's eyes widened in realization. Shadow Wraith had triggered a failsafe, a trap that would bring the entire complex down around them. "We need to get out of here," Lucian said, pulling Tara and Jodie to their feet. Now, they raced through the corridors, the walls shaking and debris falling around them. The countdown echoed in their ears, a grim reminder of the danger they faced. But as they neared the exit, a final explosion rocked the complex, and the world around them went black. As the dust settled, Lucian, Tara and Jodie found themselves in a dark, silent void. They staggered to their feet, the dust settling around them in the remnants of the collapsed corridor. The air was thick with tension, and the echoes of the explosion still rings in their ears. Lucian's mind raced as he assessed their situation. They had survived the immediate danger. "Are you both all right?" Lucian asked, his voice rough with concern. Tara nodded, her eyes fierce despite the fear lurking beneath. "We're fine, but we need to keep moving. Shadow Wraith won't stop until we're all dead." Jodie clung to Tara, her face pale. "We can't let him win," she whispered. Lucian led them through the darkened corridors, the blinking emergency lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. His mind raced with strategies, each step calculated to outmaneuver Shadow Wraith's unseen traps. But as they turned a corner, they came face to face with another screen, Shadow Wraith's masked face glaring down at them. Well, look who's still standing," Shadow Wraith taunted, his voice dripping with malice. "But tell me, Lucian, how long can you protect them? How long before your own secrets destroy you?" Lucian's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" Shadow Wraith's laugh was cold and hollow. "You think you're the hero in this story, Blackwood? Think again. Tara, Jodie, do you really know who you're following? Do you know what he's capable of?" Tara stepped forward, her eyes blazing with defiance. "You're just trying to mess with our heads. We won't fall for it." Shadow Wraith's mask tilted slightly, as if he were smiling. "Oh, but the truth is far more dangerous than any of my traps. Lucian, why don't you tell them about your past? About how you rose to power?" Lucian's jaw tightened. "This isn't about me. This is about you and your twisted games." "But it is about you," Shadow Wraith insisted. "Tell them, Lucian. Tell them about the fire." Tara's eyes flickered with confusion and suspicion. "What fire?" Lucian's heart pounded as the memories surged back, unbidden. The fire that had destroyed his rivals, the fire that had paved his way to power, the fire that had claimed innocent lives. He had buried it deep, convinced himself it was necessary, that it was the price of survival. But now, Shadow Wraith was dredging it up, using it to drive a wedge between them. "He's lying," Lucian said, his voice harsh. "He's twisting the truth to turn you against me." Shadow Wraith's laugh echoed through the corridors. "Am I? Or are you just afraid to face your own sins? The fire that killed Tara and Jodie's parents, that left them alone in this world. That was your doing, Lucian. Your orders, your hand that lit the match." Tara's face drained of colour. "No, that's not true. It can't be." Lucian stepped towards her, his eyes pleading. "Tara, listen to me. I didn't know. I didn't know they were there. It was an accident." Shadow Wraith's voice was a venomous whisper. "An accident? Or convenient collateral damage?" Jodie clung to Tara, her eyes wide with horror. "Tara, what do we do?" Tara's mind raced, torn between the man who had saved them and the revelations that were tearing their world apart. She wanted to believe Lucian, wanted to trust him, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. "We need to get out of here," Lucian said, his voice urgent. "Shadow Wraith is manipulating you. You can't let him win." But as they turned to flee, the walls around them shifted again, sealing their path. Shadow Wraith's laugh echoed through the intercom. "Oh, you won't escape so easily. Not until you face the truth, all of it." Lucian's eyes blazed with determination. "Then we'll face it together, and we'll bring you down." As they moved deeper into the complex, the air grew colder, the shadows thicker. Every step was fraught with danger, every corner a potential trap. But Lucian's resolve only hardened. He would protect Tara and Jodie, no matter the cost. He would face his past, and he would find a way to defeat Shadow Wraith. But as they entered a large open chamber, Shadow Wraith's voice echoed once more, filled with malicious glee. "Welcome to the final stage, Lucian. Let's see if you can survive the truth." The lights twinkled, revealing a room filled with holographic projections of Lucian's past. Every sin, every betrayal, every dark deed laid bare. Tara and Jodie stared in horror as the images played out, the truth of Lucian's rise to power revealed in brutal detail. Lucian's heart pounded as he stepped forward, facing the projections head-on. He watched the scenes play out, each memory a dagger to his soul. "Look at them, Blackwood." Shadow Wraith's voice taunted from the shadows. "Your sins, your betrayals. Do you really think you can protect them from this?" Lucian took a deep breath as he stepped forward, his eyes locked on the holograms. "You son of a bitch," Lucian said, his voice steady. The room was silent except for the hum of the projectors. Tara's eyes were filled with confusion and hurt. Lucian turned to her, his gaze unwavering. Tara stepped backwards. She couldn't believe she was standing next to the man who killed their parents. Lucian explained, "Tara, I didn't know your parents were there. It was a mistake, one that I will regret for the rest of my life." Tara's mind raced, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She wanted to trust Lucian, to believe in his redemption, but the images of the fire, the screams of her parents haunted her. Shadow Wraith's voice broke through her thoughts, cold and mocking. "Do you really think he can change, Tara? People like Lucian don't change. They only destroy." Lucian's eyes blazed with anger. "You're wrong, Shadow Wraith. I will make things right, starting with you." With a sudden burst of strength, Lucian lunged at the control panel, his fingers pressing over the keys as he worked to disable the holograms and regain control of the system. Shadow Wraith's laughter rang through the chamber, but Lucian's determination was unyielding. Tara watched, her heart pounding. She could see the strain on Lucian's face, the desperation in his eyes. Despite everything, she felt a glimpse of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a way out of this. As Lucian worked, the holograms began to twinkle and fade. Shadow Wraith's voice grew more frantic. "You think you can stop me, Lucian? You think you can undo the past?" Lucian's fingers moved faster, his focus razor-sharp. "I don't need to undo the past. I need to save the future." With a final keystroke, the holograms disappeared, leaving the room in darkness. Lucian turned to Tara and Jodie. "We need to find Shadow Wraith. End this once and for all." They moved through the complex, the air thick with tension. Lucian's mind raced with strategies, each step bringing them closer to the final confrontation. He knew that Shadow Wraith was a master of deception, but he also knew that he had something Shadow Wraith didn't: hope. They reached the central control room, the door sliding open to reveal Shadow Wraith standing at the main terminal, his back to them. Lucian's eyes narrowed as he stepped forward. "It's over, Shadow Wraith." Shadow Wraith turned, his eyes glinting with malice. Lucian's jaw clenched as he prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Shadow Wraith activated a series of switches on the terminal, and the room was filled with the sound of beeping devices. Lucian's heart sank as he realized what was happening. Shadow Wraith had rigged the entire complex to explode. "Run!" Lucian shouted, grabbing Tara and Jodie and pulling them towards the exit. But before they could escape, Shadow Wraith lunged at Lucian, and the two men clashed in a brutal, desperate fight. They grappled and punched, their bodies slamming into walls and equipment. Shadow Wraith was quick and agile, but Lucian's sheer determination gave him the strength to hold his own. "You're finished, Shadow Wraith!" Lucian growled, landing a solid punch to his opponent's jaw. Shadow Wraith staggered but quickly recovered, his eyes blazing with fury. "Not yet, Blackwood!" he spat, drawing a knife from his belt. The fight intensified, each blow more vicious than the last. Tara and Jodie watched in horror, knowing they were powerless to stop the violence. Then, Shadow Wraith's gaze flashed towards Jodie, who was innocently hiding behind a piece of debris. With a twisted smile, he broke free from Lucian's grasp and lunged at Jodie, knife raised. "No!" Tara screamed, but it was too late. Lucian threw himself in front of Jodie, taking the full force of the blade meant for her. The knife plunged into his side, and he grunted in pain, collapsing to the ground. "Lucian!" Tara cried out, rushing to his side. But Lucian, despite his injury, pushed her away. "Tara, protect Jodie!" he gasped, blood seeping through his shirt. Tara's eyes filled with rage and desperation. She grabbed a large stone from the ground and launched herself at Shadow Wraith, smacking his face with all her strength. The force of the blow knocked him back, and she struck again and again, her fury driving her actions. Shadow Wraith stumbled, trying to fend her off, but Tara's relentless assault left him no room to recover. Finally, with one last powerful swing, she hit him across the temple, and he crumpled to the ground unconscious. Breathing heavily, Tara dropped the stone and turned to Lucian, who lay on the floor, clutching his side. "We need to get you out of here," she said, her voice trembling. Lucian nodded weakly, his face pale. "Help me up." Tara and Jodie managed to lift Lucian, supporting him as they moved towards the exit. The walls around them shook with the force of the explosions, debris falling as they hurried through the corridors. They burst out of the complex and into the cold night air, the explosions lighting up the sky behind them. Lucian's breaths were shallow, and Tara knew they had to get him medical help quickly. As they stumbled away from the burning complex, Lucian's grip on Tara tightened. "Tara, I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice filled with regret. "Save your strength," Tara replied, tears streaming down her face. "We're going to get through this, together." In the distance, sirens wailed as emergency responders approached the scene. Lucian was carried to the hospital, his face pale and his breaths shallow. Tara and Jodie sat next to him, their hearts heavy with worry as they clung to each other for support. The ride was a blur of flashing lights and sirens, the urgency of the situation pressing down on them. Upon arrival, Lucian was immediately taken to the operating room. Tara and Jodie watched as the doors swung shut, leaving them in the cold corridor. They sank into the hard plastic chairs, the weight of the night's events settling over them. Hours passed with agonizing slowness. Tara paced the floor, her mind racing with thoughts of Lucian's sacrifice and Shadow Wraith's final twisted game. Jodie sat silently, her eyes never leaving the double doors of the operating room. Finally, the doors opened, and a doctor emerged, his face lined with exhaustion, but a reassuring smile on his lips. "Lucian will be all right," he said, addressing Tara and Jodie. "The procedure was successful, but he'll need to stay in the ICU for observation." "Thank you," she whispered to the doctor, her voice thick with emotion. Relief flooded through Tara, and she hugged Jodie tightly. They went home to freshen up, the events of the night replaying in their minds. The silence between them was filled with unspoken fears and hopes. After a quick shower and change of clothes, Tara returned to the hospital, unable to stay away. She sat by Lucian's bedside, watching the steady rise and fall of his chest. The beeping of the monitors was a reminder of his fragility and strength. Day after day, Tara visited him, her affection for Lucian growing with each passing moment. Despite the age difference, their bond deepened, forged in the fires of their shared struggle. When Lucian finally opened his eyes, Tara was there, her face lighting up with a smile. "You're awake," she said softly, taking his hand in hers. Lucian managed a weak smile. "I knew you'd be here." As the days turned into weeks, Lucian's strength returned, Tara's affection and care helping him heal. They talked about everything, his past, their future, and the possibilities that lay ahead. Shadow Wraith had not survived the final confrontation. The news brought a sense of closure, but also a grim reminder of the world they lived in. Lucian's empire needed rebuilding, and Tara was determined to stand by his side. Tara began working for Lucian, her skills and intelligence invaluable in his world. She quickly adapted to the complexities of his operations, earning the respect of his inner circle. Together, they strategized and executed plans to destabilize rival gangs, their partnership growing stronger with each success. One night, after a particularly intense operation, Lucian stood in the shadows of a rival gang's territory, watching as his men dismantled their operations. He felt a sense of grim satisfaction. The balance of power was shifting in his favor. As the dust settled, Lucian made his way to a sleek black car, parked discreetly nearby. Tara was waiting inside, her eyes shining with pride and affection. Lucian slid into the passenger seat, a victorious smile on his lips. He turned to Tara, his eyes filled with love and triumph. Without a word, he leaned in and kissed her passionately, the intensity of the moment capturing all they had endured and all they had become. "Done," Lucian murmured against her lips. "Let's go home." Tara smiled, her heart swelling with love and determination. She started the car, and they drove off into the night, the city lights reflecting off the windows as they left the chaos behind. Although Tara knew that being romantically involved with Lucian was akin to playing with fire, one thing remained certain: their bond was unbreakable.